Entertainment presents The Diosdado, Macapagal story.
Diosdado Macapagal was born in San Nicolas, Tubao, Pampanga on September 28, 1910 to parents Urbano Macapagal and Romana Pangan. Macapagal was described as the first truly poor man president the Philippines had, having been born into a peasant family as compared to other presidents who were born into either landed or middle-class backgrounds. Due to his roots in poverty, Macapagal would later become affectionately known as the poor boy from Lubao.
As a native of Lubao, Pampanga, Macapagal graduated from University of the Philippines and the University of Santo Tomas, after which he worked as a lawyer for the government. He first won the election in 1949 to the House of Representatives, representing a district in his home province of Pampanga. Later on, he became the Philippines' 6th Vice President, serving from 1957 to 1961 in the administration of President Carlos P. Garcia.
In 1961, he defeated Garcia's re-election bid for the presidency. Thus, Macapagal became the 9th President of the Philippines, serving from 1961 to 1965. During the Marcos administration, Macapagal was also elected President of the Constitutional Convention, which would later draft what became the 1973 Constitution.
Diosdado Macapagal's victory in 1961 earned him a seat to presidency. On December 30, 1961, he shared his inaugural speech titled as The Mission to the Country. In the introduction of his speech, he declared,
"I shall be president not only for the rich, but more so of the poor. And I shall be president not only one sector, but of all the people."
The highlight of his inaugural speech is the 5 missions he mentioned, each focusing on different aspects that the country was facing then.
Our first mission is the solution of the problem of corruption. Our second mission is to attain self-sufficiency of food for our people, namely rice and corn. Millions of our people are unemployed, and millions more are unemployed, and millions more are underemployed. Our third mission, therefore, is the creation of conditions that will provide more income for our people. Income for those who have none, and more income for those whose earnings are inadequate for their elemental needs. Our fourth mission is to launch a bold, well-formulated socio-economic program that shall place the country on the road to prosperity for all our people. Our fifth mission, therefore, is to establish the practices and the example that will strengthen the moral fiber of our nation and reintroduce those values that would invigorate our democracy. With God's grace and the support of all the citizens of goodwill and good faith, and of our common people in particular, I pray with all my heart and soul that I shall not fail in my trust.
Conditions of the Philippines.
Still, even dating back to the past, graft and corruption was still present throughout the country. There was also a widespread of poverty. The masses experienced low living standards. Many people were unemployed. And the Philippines still continues to undergo the economic controls that had been in operation since 1948. So, what did Diosdado Macapagal do to solve these problems?
There was a discovery and development of miracle rice by the International Rice Research Institute. Macapagal introduced the country's first law reform, the Agricultural Land Reform Program of 1963, which freed many farmers from slavery as tenant farmers. This program provided for the purchases of private farmlands with the intention of distributing them in lots to the landless farmers on easy-term payment.
Socio-economic programs.
The 5-year Socio-Economic Integrated Development Program, which was aimed at the following objectives: immediate restoration of economic stability, establishing a dynamic base for future growth, alleviating the plight of common man.
The New Era program tried to lift the government regulation in American dollars and to stabilize the Philippine peso through the formation of various economic projects which would further strengthen the foundation of the currency. Macapagal also tried to boost the Philippine economy by giving jobs to young Filipinos through a new program called Emergency Employment Administration.
Political programs.
Macapagal proposed the formation for Mafilindo, an association of states which included Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. This paved way for the creation of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN.
He also served as a mediator in solving the international conflict between the United States and Cambodia. He also helped in solving the dispute between the Federation of Malaysia and Indonesia.
He also made a provocative declaration that the Sabah Island was a former territory of the Philippines.
Cultural programs.
Macapagal promoted the usage of the national language in our diplomatic credentials, such as passports and stamps. He also released an order that the Filipino language should be used in traffic signs and in naming the typhoons.
Ng bagyong Maring at Habagat, nakulot ng pagbaha sa Metro Manila at malaking bahagi ng Luzon.
Hinambalos din ng bagyong Pablo ang Bukidnon, daan-daang bahay ang nawasak.
His administration was also historical because he changed the date of Philippine independence from July 4 to June 12.
Macapagal was able to achieve steady economic progress, and annual GDP growth averaged at 5.15% for 1962 to 1965. As a result, agricultural gross domestic product was at its highest, inflation was at its lowest, and trade deficit was negligible.
Foreign debts were less than $600 million and Philippine economic development was right behind that of Japan in Asia.
20 days after the inauguration, exchange controls were lifted and the Philippine peso was allowed to float on the free currency exchange market.
The peso devalued from 2.64 pesos to the US dollar and stabilized at 3.80 pesos to the dollar, supported by a $300 million stabilization fund from the International Monetary Fund.
Issues.
He was unable to give farmers the land they needed because aside from having no specific timetable as to when they were to receive the land, the government didn't have the money to purchase the land from the hacienderos, which was to be distributed to the farmers in the first place.
The administration's campaign against corruption was tested by Harry Stonehill, an American expatriate with a $50 million business empire in the Philippines. Macapagal's Secretary of Justice, Jose Diokno, investigated Stonehill on charges of tax evasion, smuggling, misdeclaration of imports, and corruption of public officials. Diokno's investigation revealed Stonehill's ties to corruption within the government. Macapagal, however, prevented Diokno from prosecuting Stonehill by deporting the American instead, then dismissing Diokno from the cabinet. Diokno questioned Macapagal's actions, saying,
Can the government now prosecute the corrupted when it has allowed the corrupted to go?
Diokno later served as a senator of the Republic.
Macapagal's friends in the oligarchy and the privileged minority in Congress and business soon began parading their lavish wealth in conspicuous parties, junkets, and anomalous deals.
So what are the effects of these programs in the present time? The Agricultural Land Reform Code of 1963 had the goal to provide for the purchase of private farmlands with the intention of distributing them in small lots to the landless tenants on easy term of payment. It served as one of the bases for our land reform codes in the present.
In 1964, Diosdado Macapagal declared June 12 as the new Independence Day. Republic Act No. 4166 changed the date of the Independence Day from July 4 to June 12 and renamed the July 4 holiday as Philippine Republic Day. Up until today, Filipinos celebrate the Philippine Independence Day upon Macapagal's implementation, which is on June 12.
The devaluation of the Philippine peso started during his term, which makes him, in the eyes of some, the root of a lot of today's problems in the country.
He returned free trade and free enterprise to the country, which crushed local goods and businesses which continue to suffer up to today.
Yeah. Okay. 나 혹시 몰라 경고하는데 잘 들어 지금 위험해 So dangerous 자꾸 나를 자극하지 마